Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our English Learning Podcast. I'm James, and I'm really excited about today's episode.
And I'm Sarah. Today, we're going to talk about something that affects millions of people around the world, the life of teachers and educators.
That's right. We'll be sharing real conversations, real challenges, and real stories from the classroom. Whether you're a teacher yourself, a student, or just someone interested in education, this episode is for you.
And remember, this podcast is designed to help you improve your English listening skills. We'll speak clearly, use everyday vocabulary, and discuss topics that matter. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's begin.
So, Sarah, let's start with the big question. Why did you become a teacher?
You know, James, I get asked this question all the time. When I was in high school, I had this amazing English teacher, Mrs. Robinson. She made every lesson feel like an adventure. She didn't just teach us grammar and vocabulary, she showed us how language opens doors to new worlds.
That's beautiful. A great teacher can really change your life, can't they?
Absolutely. Mrs. Robinson believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I was shy, afraid to speak up in class, but she encouraged me to join the debate team, and that changed everything. I thought if I could help just one student the way she helped me, it would all be worth it.
I love that story. My journey was a bit different. I actually wanted to be a journalist at first.
Really? What made you change your mind?
Well, during university, I started volunteering at a local community center teaching English to immigrants. There was this man, Antonio, from Brazil. He was a doctor in his country, but in the United States, he couldn't practice because of the language barrier.
That must have been so frustrating for him.
It was. But after 6 months of classes, he passed his medical English exam. The day he showed me his certificate, he had tears in his eyes. He said, "You gave me my life back." That moment changed everything for me. I realized that teaching wasn't just about books and exams. It was about changing lives.
Those moments are what keep us going, aren't they? When you see that spark of understanding in a student's eyes.
Exactly. But let's be honest with our listeners. Teaching isn't always that magical. There are real challenges we face every single day.
Oh, absolutely. The challenges are very real. Should we talk about some of them?
Let's do it. I think our listeners need to hear the whole truth about teaching. So, James, when people think about teachers, they often say things like, "You're so lucky, you finish work at 3 o'clock and you get summers off."
If I had $1 for every time someone said that to me.
Right? The truth is so different. James, what time did you leave school yesterday?
I left the building at 3:30, but then I went home and spent 3 hours grading essays. I finally finished at 8 p.m., and that's a normal day.
Exactly. People see us leaving the building, but they don't see us working at home, planning lessons, grading assignments, answering emails from parents, preparing materials for the next day.
Let's break this down for our listeners. A typical teacher's day doesn't end when the bell rings. After students leave, we have meetings with other teachers, we meet with parents, we organize activities.
And the grading. Oh, the grading never ends. I teach 5 classes with about 25 students in each class. That's 125 students total. If I assign an essay and it takes me just 10 minutes to read and grade each one,
That's over 20 hours of grading for one assignment.
exactly. And we can't just assign an essay per year. Students need regular feedback to improve.
This is something I want our listeners to understand, especially if they're teachers or thinking about becoming teachers. Time management becomes absolutely crucial.
So true. I've learned some strategies over the years. For example, I don't take all the papers home at once. I grade a little bit each day during my lunch break or during my planning period.
That's smart. I've started using rubrics for assignments. Instead of writing long comments on every paper, I have a checklist with criteria. It's faster, and students actually understand the feedback better.
Rubrics are lifesavers. Another thing I do is peer review. I teach my students how to give each other constructive feedback. This way, they learn from reviewing others' work, and I don't have to grade every single draft.
Those are great strategies. But even with all these time-saving techniques, the workload is still heavy, and it's not just about grading, right?
No, not at all. Lesson planning takes so much time, especially when you're trying to make lessons engaging and meaningful.
Can you give our listeners an example of what goes into planning a single lesson?
Sure. Let's say I'm teaching a lesson about the present perfect tense. First, I need to think about what my students already know. Have they learned the past simple? Do they understand the concept of actions that started in the past and continue to the present?
So you start with their current knowledge level.
Right. Then I need to find or create materials, maybe a video, some example sentences, exercises. I need to plan activities that address different learning styles. Some students learn best by listening, others by reading, others by doing hands-on activities.
That's a lot of preparation for just one grammar point.
And it doesn't stop there. I need to think about how I'll explain it, what examples I'll use, what questions students might ask, how I'll handle mistakes.
Then you need to prepare practice activities, homework assignments, and some kind of assessment to check if they understood.
Exactly. A 50-minute lesson can easily take 2 to 3 hours to plan properly. And I teach 5 or 6 different lessons every day.
This brings us to another reality of teaching. We rarely have enough time to plan the perfect lesson. Sometimes you're planning tonight's lesson at 10 p.m. because you were too busy during the day.
Or you're planning tomorrow's lesson on your drive to work in the morning.
Been there. But you know what? Even with all this work, even with the long hours and the stress, there's something that makes it worthwhile.
The students, right?
Yes, when you see a student finally understand something they've been struggling with, or when a shy student raises their hand for the first time, or when a former student comes back to visit and tells you how much your class meant to them, those moments make everything worth it.
Absolutely. But we should also be honest about the fact that the workload can lead to burnout. This is a serious issue in education.
It really is. Studies show that many teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years because of stress and burnout.
And that's a huge loss for education. We lose talented, passionate people who could have been amazing teachers.
So, what can we do about this? What advice would you give to teachers who are feeling overwhelmed?
First, set boundaries. You cannot work 24 hours a day. Decide on a time when you'll stop working in the evening. For me, it's 9 p.m. After 9 p.m., no more grading, no more planning.
That's good advice. I would also say, don't try to be perfect. Your lessons don't have to be perfect. Your classroom doesn't have to look like a Pinterest board.
Ugh, the Pinterest comparison, that's so real. We see all these beautiful classrooms on social media, and we think, why doesn't my classroom look like that?
Right, but those pictures don't show the hours of work that went into creating them. And honestly, students don't need a Pinterest perfect classroom. They need a teacher who is present, prepared, and cares about them.
Well said. Another piece of advice is find your teacher community. Talk to other teachers, share resources, support each other.
Yes, teaching can feel isolating because you're alone in your classroom most of the day, but connecting with colleagues makes such a difference.
And finally, remember why you started teaching. On hard days, remind yourself of those magical moments, those students you helped, the difference you're making.
So Sarah, let's talk about something that many new teachers find challenging: classroom management.
Oh yes, this is a big one. I remember my first year of teaching. I thought that if I planned great lessons, students would automatically behave well.
And how did that work out?
Not well at all. I had no control over my classroom. Students were talking during lessons, not doing their work, disrupting other students.
This is something they don't really teach you in teacher training, right? They focus so much on teaching methods and lesson planning, but classroom management is often overlooked.
Exactly. And it's so important because you can't teach anything if you don't have a well-managed classroom.
So let's share some real experiences. Sarah, what was your biggest classroom management challenge?
In my second year of teaching, I had a class with 3 students who just didn't want to be there. They were constantly disruptive, talking, making jokes, distracting others.
How did you handle it?
At first, I tried to ignore it, hoping it would stop. Bad idea. It only got worse. Then I tried being strict, giving detention, calling their parents. That didn't really work either. It just made them resent me.
So what finally worked?
I realized I needed to build relationships with these students. I started talking to them before class, asking about their interests, showing that I cared about them as people, not just as students in my class.
And did their behavior change?
Not immediately, but gradually, yes. I learned that these 3 students were acting out because they felt school was irrelevant to their lives. So I started connecting my lessons to things they cared about.
Can you give an example?
Sure. One of them loved cars, so when we were studying descriptive writing, I let him write about his dream car. Another one loved music, so I used song lyrics to teach poetry. Small things, but they made a difference.
That's such an important lesson. Students behave better when they feel seen and valued.
Absolutely. But I also learned that you need clear rules and consequences. Kindness alone isn't enough.
Right. Students need structure. They need to know what's expected of them and what happens if they don't meet those expectations.
What's your approach to classroom management, James?
I've developed what I call the 3 C's: clear expectations, consistent consequences, and constant communication.
I like that. Can you explain each one?
Sure. Clear expectations means that on the first day of class, we establish rules together. I don't just tell students what the rules are, we discuss them as a class and agree on them.
So students have ownership of the rules.
Exactly. And the rules are simple and specific. Not be respectful, but listen when others are speaking, raise your hand before talking, use kind words.
Specific rules are easier to follow and easier to enforce.
Right. The second C is consistent consequences. This is crucial. If the consequence for talking during class is a warning the first time, then it has to be a warning every time for every student.
That's where many teachers struggle, including myself sometimes.
It's hard, especially when you like a student or when you're having a tough day, but consistency is key. Students need to know that rules apply equally to everyone.
What about the third C, constant communication?
This means keeping in touch with parents, with school counselors, with other teachers. If a student is having behavior problems, I don't wait until report cards to tell the parents. I reach out immediately.
Communication is so important. I've found that most parents want to help, but they can't help if they don't know there's a problem.
Exactly. And sometimes you learn important information from parents. Maybe the student's parents are going through a divorce, or they lost a family member, or they're dealing with bullying. This context helps you understand the behavior.
That's true. Behind every behavior, there's a reason. Not an excuse, but a reason.
Well said. Let me share a story that really taught me this lesson.
Please do.
I had a student, Marcus, who was falling asleep in class every day. I was frustrated. I thought he was staying up late playing video games. I talked to him about it, but nothing changed.
What was really going on?
One day, I asked him to stay after class, and we had a real conversation. It turned out that his mother worked night shifts, and he had to take care of his 2 younger siblings every night. He was getting about 4 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow. That's a completely different situation.
Yes, once I knew this, I worked with the school counselor to get his family some support. I also let Marcus know that if he was too tired to participate, he could put his head down for a few minutes during class. I gave him assignments he could do at times when he was more alert.
That's really understanding and flexible of you.
It wasn't about lowering standards. It was about recognizing that this student was dealing with adult-level responsibilities and still trying to get an education.
These stories remind me why classroom management is about so much more than just rules and discipline. It's about understanding your students as whole people.
Absolutely. Let's talk about another aspect of classroom management, dealing with conflicts between students.
Oh yes, this happens all the time. 2 students who don't get along or groups of friends who have drama, and it spills into your classroom.
How do you handle it?
I've learned not to ignore it. If there's tension or conflict, it affects the whole class atmosphere. So I address it, but carefully.
What do you mean by carefully?
I don't call students out in front of the whole class. That's embarrassing and often makes things worse. Instead, I talk to them privately, either individually or together.
Do you try to resolve the conflict yourself, or do you involve counselors?
It depends on the situation. For minor disagreements, I can usually help students work it out themselves. I teach them conflict resolution skills, how to express their feelings, how to listen to the other person, how to find compromise.
Those are life skills that go way beyond the classroom.
Exactly. But for serious conflicts, bullying, harassment, threats, I immediately involve school counselors and administrators.
That's important. Teachers shouldn't try to handle everything alone. We need to know when to ask for help.
Definitely. Speaking of asking for help, let's talk about students with special needs or learning difficulties.
This is such an important topic. In many classrooms today, we have students with all kinds of needs. Learning disabilities, ADHD, autism, anxiety disorders.
And we're expected to meet all of their needs while also teaching the rest of the class.
It's challenging, but it's also rewarding when you figure out how to help these students succeed.
Do you have strategies you use for differentiated instruction?
I try to present information in multiple ways. For example, when I introduce a new topic, I might show a video, provide written notes, do a hands-on activity, and have a discussion. This way, different types of learners can access the information.
That's good. I work on creating flexible assessments. Not every student has to show their knowledge in the same way.
Can you give an example?
Sure. For a unit on literature, some students might write an essay, but I also allow students to create a video, give a presentation, or even create artwork with a written explanation.
That makes sense. The goal is to assess understanding, not to make everyone do the exact same thing.
Right. And you know what? I found that giving students choices often leads to better work because they're more engaged.
I've noticed that too. When students have some control over their learning, they take more ownership of it.
James, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough, the emotional challenges of teaching.
This is such an important topic. Teaching is emotionally demanding in ways that people outside the profession often don't understand.
Exactly. We're not just delivering information, we're working with real people, with real problems, real emotions, real struggles.
And we care about our students. We can't just turn off our emotions at the end of the day.
I sometimes lie awake at night worrying about my students, wondering if that quiet kid is okay or if the student who missed 3 days of school is safe at home.
I do the same thing. And then there are situations where you feel helpless because you want to help, but you can't fix everything.
Can you share an example?
Sure. Last year, I had a brilliant student, Emily. She was talented, hardworking, always participating in class. But over a few months, I noticed changes. She became withdrawn, stopped doing homework, stopped participating.
What was happening?
I talked to her after class one day, and she opened up about her depression. She was struggling with dark thoughts and feelings.
That must have been scary to hear.
It was. I immediately connected her with our school counselor, and I notified the school psychologist. Her parents got involved, and she started getting professional help.
You did the right things.
I know I did, but it was still so hard. I wanted to fix everything for her, but I couldn't. All I could do is be supportive, check in with her regularly, be flexible with deadlines when she was having tough days.
Being there for students in crises is one of the hardest parts of teaching. We're not therapists, but sometimes students come to us with heavy problems.
And we have to balance being supportive with maintaining professional boundaries. It's a delicate balance.
It really is. I've had students tell me things about their home lives that broke my heart. Abuse, neglect, poverty, addiction in the family.
And as mandated reporters, we have responsibilities when we hear about certain things.
Yes, if we suspect child abuse or neglect, we legally have to report it, but that doesn't make it emotionally easy.
No, it doesn't. I've had to make those calls, and every time I feel this mix of emotions, concern for the student, fear that I might be wrong, worry about how it will affect my relationship with the student.
But we make those calls because we care about our students' safety and well-being.
Absolutely. Even when it's hard, we do what's right.
Another emotional challenge for me is dealing with difficult parents.
Oh, yes. Most parents are wonderful and supportive, but then you have those few who are challenging.
That's a diplomatic way to put it. I've had parents who email me at 11 p.m. demanding immediate responses, parents who refuse to believe their child did anything wrong, parents who want me to change grades.
How do you handle those situations?
I've learned to stay calm and professional even when parents are angry or rude. I remind myself that they're usually coming from a place of concern for their child, even if they're expressing it badly.
That's a good perspective. I try to use the feedback sandwich approach. Start with something positive about their child, address the concern, then end with another positive note.
Does that usually work? Most of the time, yes. People are more receptive to criticism when they don't feel attacked. But I'll be honest, there have been a few times when nothing worked, and I had to involve my principal.
Sometimes that's necessary. We don't have to handle everything alone.
Right? And speaking of not handling things alone, let's talk about the importance of teacher well-being.
Yes. Teachers give so much to their students, but we also need to take care of ourselves.
What do you do for self-care, Sarah?
I've had to be very intentional about this because I used to work constantly and ignore my own needs. Now I exercise 3 times a week. I have hobbies outside of teaching. I paint and I'm in a book club.
Those are great. It's important to have an identity outside of being a teacher.
Exactly. And I've learned to say no. I can't volunteer for every committee, chaperone every field trip, sponsor every club.
That's hard though, right? Because we want to do everything for our students and our schools.
It is hard, but I realize that if I burn out completely, I can't help anyone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary.
I completely agree. For me, self-care means having a cutoff time for work. After 8 p.m., I don't check emails. The weekend is family time.
How do you stick to that? Don't you feel guilty sometimes?
At first, yes, I felt guilty all the time. But then I noticed that when I took time for myself, I was actually a better teacher. I had more energy, more creativity, more patience.
That makes sense. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And I want to say to any teachers listening, please take care of yourselves. Teaching is a marathon, not a sprint. You need to pace yourself.
James, we've talked a lot about the challenges of teaching, but let's end on a positive note. What are the rewards that make it all worthwhile?
Oh, there are so many. Should I start with the obvious one?
The students?
Yes, the students are the best part of teaching. Every day I get to work with young people who are learning, growing, discovering who they are.
I love that moment when you're explaining something difficult and you see the light bulb go on in a student's mind. That aha moment.
Those moments are pure magic. Or when a student who has been struggling finally succeeds and they're so proud of themselves.
Yes, I had a student last year who failed the first 3 tests in my class. She came to me after school for extra help, worked so hard, and eventually got an A on the final exam. When I handed her that test, she actually cried tears of joy.
Those are the moments that remind us why we do this job.
Another reward for me is creativity. Every lesson is a chance to be creative, to try new things, to make learning fun and engaging.
That's true. Teaching is one of the few jobs where you can be creative every single day. You can design projects, create activities, find new ways to present information.
And no 2 days are the same. Every day brings something different.
I also love the relationships we build with students. Over the course of a school year, you really get to know your students as individuals.
Yes, and often those relationships continue beyond the classroom. I still keep in touch with students I taught 5 or 10 years ago.
Me too. I love when former students come back to visit or send me messages about their lives. Last month, I got an email from a student I taught 7 years ago. She's in medical school now, and she said my class inspired her to pursue science.
That must have felt amazing.
It really did. Moments like that remind you that teaching has a lasting impact.
Speaking of impact, I think one of the greatest rewards is knowing that we're shaping the future. Our students will become doctors, engineers, artists, parents, leaders.
Every student we teach goes on to touch other lives. The impact multiplies.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
We're not just teaching English or math or science. We're teaching critical thinking, problem solving, communication, empathy.
These are skills that serve people throughout their entire lives.
And sometimes we impact students in ways we don't even know about. We might say something encouraging that a student remembers forever.
Or we might be the one adult in a student's life who believes in them when no one else does.
Teachers can be lifelines for struggling students.
Absolutely. Another reward I appreciate is the learning. As a teacher, I'm constantly learning new teaching methods, new technology, new perspectives from my students.
Oh, yes. Students keep us young and current. They teach us about new music, new trends, new ways of thinking.
James, we've talked a lot about the challenges of teaching, but let's end on a positive note. What are the rewards that make it all worthwhile?
Oh, there are so many. Should I start with the obvious one?
The students?
Yes, the students are the best part of teaching. Every day I get to work with young people who are learning, growing, discovering who they are.
I love that moment when you're explaining something difficult and you see the light bulb go on in a student's mind. That aha moment.
Those moments are pure magic. Or when a student who has been struggling finally succeeds, and they're so proud of themselves.
Yes. I had a student last year who failed the first 3 tests in my class. She came to me after school for extra help, worked so hard, and eventually got an A on the final exam. When I handed her that test, she actually cried tears of joy.
Those are the moments that remind us why we do this job.
Another reward for me is creativity. Every lesson is a chance to be creative, to try new things, to make learning fun and engaging.
That's true. Teaching is one of the few jobs where you can be creative every single day. You can design projects, create activities, find new ways to present information.
And no 2 days are the same. Every day brings something different.
I also love the relationships we build with students. Over the course of a school year, you really get to know your students as individuals.
Yes, and often those relationships continue beyond the classroom. I still keep in touch with students I taught 5 or 10 years ago.
Me too. I love when former students come back to visit or send me messages about their lives. Last month, I got an email from a student I taught 7 years ago. She's in medical school now, and she said my class inspired her to pursue science.
That must have felt amazing.
It really did. Moments like that remind you that teaching has a lasting impact.
Speaking of impact, I think one of the greatest rewards is knowing that we're shaping the future. Our students will become doctors, engineers, artists, parents, leaders.
Every student we teach goes on to touch other lives. The impact multiplies.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We're not just teaching English or math or science. We're teaching critical thinking, problem solving, communication, empathy.
These are skills that serve people throughout their entire lives.
And sometimes we impact students in ways we don't even know about. We might say something encouraging that a student remembers forever.
Or we might be the one adult in a student's life who believes in them when no one else does.
Teachers can be lifelines for struggling students.
Absolutely. Another reward I appreciate is the learning. As a teacher, I'm constantly learning. New teaching methods, new technology, new perspectives from my students.
Oh, yes. Students keep us young and current. They teach us about new music, new trends, new ways of thinking.
And they challenge us with their questions. Some of the best discussions I've had in class came from student questions I wasn't expecting.
Those spontaneous moments are often the most memorable. I also appreciate the community aspect of teaching.
You mean the relationships with other teachers?
Yes, the friendships I've formed with colleagues are so valuable. We support each other, share ideas, laugh together, and sometimes cry together.
The teacher's lounge is therapy, right?
It really is. Having people who understand what you're going through makes such a difference.
And beyond our immediate colleagues, there's the larger education community. Teachers are sharing resources online, collaborating across schools, and even across countries.
Technology has really opened up opportunities for teacher collaboration. I'm part of several online teaching communities where we share lesson plans and strategies.
Those communities are wonderful. Another reward I've noticed is personal growth. Teaching has made me more patient, more flexible, more compassionate.
Oh, absolutely. Teaching definitely tests your patience, but it also develops it.
And you learn to adapt quickly. When a lesson isn't working, you have to think on your feet and adjust.
That ability to adapt serves you well in all areas of life, not just teaching.
True. I've also become a better communicator because of teaching. I've learned to explain complex ideas in simple terms.
And we learn to read people better, to notice when someone is confused or upset or needs extra support.
These are valuable life skills. In a way, our students teach us just as much as we teach them.
I love that perspective. You know, despite all the challenges we've discussed today, I can't imagine doing anything else.
Same here. Even on the hardest days, I know I'm doing meaningful work.
And that sense of purpose is a reward in itself.
Well, Sarah, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the challenges and rewards of teaching.
We have. And I hope our listeners, especially those who are teachers or thinking about becoming teachers, found this conversation helpful.
If you're a teacher listening to this, remember that you're not alone. All of us face similar challenges, and it's okay to struggle sometimes.
It's also okay to ask for help, to set boundaries, and to take care of yourself. You can't be effective in the classroom if you're burned out.
And to our listeners who aren't teachers, we hope this gave you some insight into what teaching really involves. Teachers do so much more than what happens in the classroom.
We're counselors, mentors, coaches, referees, social workers, and yes, educators. We wear many hats.
If you have a teacher in your life, whether you're a student, a parent, or a friend of a teacher, please show them appreciation. A simple thank you can mean so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the teachers listening. Your work matters more than you know.
Before we end, let's leave our listeners with some final thoughts about teaching. James, what would you say to someone who is considering becoming a teacher?
I would say this: teaching is hard. It will challenge you in ways you can't imagine. You'll work long hours, you'll deal with difficult situations, and sometimes you'll question your choice.
But
It's incredibly rewarding. You'll make a difference in young people's lives. You'll have those magical moments of connection and breakthrough. You'll grow as a person. And you'll be part of something bigger than yourself. You'll be shaping the future.
beautifully said. I would add that you need passion for teaching. If you're just looking for an easy job with good vacation time, teaching is not for you.
Definitely not. But if you love learning, if you care about young people, if you want to make a real impact, then teaching might be your calling.
And to current teachers who might be struggling, I want to say it gets easier. Your first year is the hardest. Each year you learn more, you improve, you develop your own teaching style.
And remember why you started. Think about that student who inspired you to become a teacher, or that moment when you first realized you wanted to teach.
Hold on to those moments when times get tough.
Well, I think that's a great place to end our conversation today. James, thank you for this discussion.
Thank you, Sarah. It's always good to talk with someone who understands the teaching life.
To our listeners, thank you for spending this time with us. We hope this podcast helped you improve your English listening skills and maybe gave you some insight into the world of teaching.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and share it with friends who are learning English or who are interested in education.
You can also leave us a comment telling us what topics you'd like us to discuss in future episodes.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, education changes lives.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.